Hello and welcome to British English with me, Alexandre. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another English lesson. We're going ahead now with Unit 15 from our very sophisticated, advanced grammar in use from Cambridge University. This is a self-study reference and practice book for advanced learners of English by Martin Hewings. We're gonna progress now to Unit 15. We're getting into modal verbs, modal and semi-modal verbs. Those special verbs are incredibly important in terms of meaning. Okay, let's go through that lesson. Now we're gonna be talking about when to use can, could, be able to, and be allowed to. When to use those can, could, be able to, and be allowed to. What does those verbs and expressions mean? Okay, we're talking about section A at first. Let's go through that lesson. So we're gonna talk about the verbs can or can, weak and strong ways to pronounce, and its could form and also be able to. Now can, could, and be able to, those three expressions, verbs and expressions, in that case in particular refer to ability. Okay, let's get started with the lesson. We sometimes use be able to instead of can and could to talk about ability. Now, we avoid be able to in some circumstances. For example, when we talk about something that's happening as we speak. For example, a child might say to its mom, "Watch me, mom. I can't stand on one leg." Not I'm able to stand on one leg. No, we don't use that expression in that case because we're talking about something that is happening as we speak. So again, watch me, ma'am. I can't stand on one leg. Can you stand on one leg? Also, we avoid be able to before passives. For example, films can now easily be streamed online rather than films are now easily able to be streamed. To be streamed means to be transmitted online. So you can watch it before it's completed. You can watch something that's streamed before it's complete, before the download is complete. And also, we avoid the expression be able to when the meaning is know how to. For example, can you cook? Do you know how to cook? Can you cook? Rather than are you able to cook? So, firstly, in that section, we can see that the verb can is more appropriate than the construction be able to. So, generally, we avoid be able to and use can at first. Now, let's go through section B. And this is a really special one. For example, let's go through the explanation. If we talk about a single achievement, something you've done, a single achievement, rather than a general ability in the past, we usually use be able to rather than could. Compare. Sophie could play the flute quite well. Again, Sophie could play the flute quite well. Or Sophie was able to play the flute quite well. We can use both constructions, could or was able to. Be able to in the past. Sophie was able to play the flute quite well. We're talking about a general ability. And the second example, she swam. She swam strongly and was able to cross the river easily, even though it was swollen by the heavy rain. So it's about a single achievement, not a general ability, like in the previous example. For example, we might not say she swam strongly and could cross. No, this is about a specific achievement, something that she was not accustomed to. Okay, let's move on. However, could is usually more natural than be able to. In those cases, first, in negative sentences, for example, I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. This is in the negative. Could not, couldn't. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. Also, could is usually more natural than be able to, with verbs of the senses, e.g. That means, for example, the verb to feel, to hear, to see, to smell, taste, and with the verbs of thinking, e.g. believe, decide, remember, and understand. For example, I could remember the crash, but nothing after that. I could remember the crash, but nothing after that. So we use could. Could is usually more natural than be able to. And also, could is usually more natural than be able to after the phrases, for example, the only thing, the only place, the only time, and after all, when it means the only thing. For example, all we could see were his feet. All we could see were his feet, meaning the only thing we could see were his feet. By the way, how do we pronounce that word feet? Notice that this is not a short fit. No, it's a long E. Feet. 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 Not fit. Fit. It's not a short E sound, but it's a long E sound. Notice again, it's not fit. No, it's feet. It's a long E sound. Again, all we could see were his feet. Continue, let's move on. Could is usually more natural than be able to. Also, to suggest that something almost didn't happen, particularly with almost, hardly, just, and nearly. For example, I could nearly teach the ceiling. I could nearly teach the ceiling. I could nearly touch the ceiling. I could nearly touch the ceiling. Now let's move on through section C. Again, now we're discussing, we're explaining can and could, but under its possibility. Possibility. We spell it Possibility, but we pronounce it possibility. Possibility. We're talking now about possibility. In the beginning, we were talking about those verbs, but in terms of its ability. 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 Pronounced ability. But now we're considering those corresponding verbs under its possibility circumstances. Okay, to talk about the theoretical possibility of something happening. Now, theoretical. Let's pay any special attention to that word. We pronounce it theoretical. Theoretical. So, to talk about the theoretical possibility of something happening, we use could, not can. However, we use can, not could, to say that something is possible and actually happens. Compare. It could be expensive to keep a cat. It could be expensive to keep a cat. If we had one, it could or it may not be expensive, and it can be expensive to keep a cat. It can be, and it sometimes is. We can use can't, not couldn't, to say that something is theoretically or actually impossible. For example, there can't be many people in the world who haven't watched television. Again, there can't be many people in the world who haven't watched television. Another example, the doctor can't see you this morning, he's busy at the hospital. The doctor can't see you this morning, he's busy at the hospital. Let's move on to section D. We can use can to indicate that there's a very real possibility of a future event happening. Using could suggests that something is less likely or that there is some doubt about it. Compare. We can stay with the Jake in Oslo. We will be able to stay. We can stay with the Jake in Oslo. We will be able to stay. And we might say, we could stay with Jake in Oslo. We could stay with Jake in Oslo. It is possible. It's a possibility. If he's there. Now, let's go through section E of that lesson. Actually, the final section of that wonderful lesson about modal verbs. Okay, now we're considering could and be allowed to. Could be allowed to, what to use? We're considering permission to do something. Okay, to say that in the past someone had general permission to do something. Pay attention to that. We're talking about general permission. That means you can do anything, whatever you want. To say that in the past someone had general permission to do something, that is, to do it at any time. We can use either could or was allowed to or were allowed to. However, to talk about permission for one particular past action, pay attention to that, one particular past action, we use was allowed to or were allowed to according to the personal pronoun or the subjects involved, but not could. Compare. Anyone was allowed to fish in the lake when the council owned it. Anyone was allowed to fish in the lake when the council owned it. Or Anyone could fish in the lake when the council owned it. Anyone could fish in the lake when the council owned it. This is about general permission. On the other hand, you might you might see something like that. Although he didn't have a ticket, although he didn't have a ticket, Ned was allowed to come in. Although he didn't have a ticket, Ned was allowed to come in. So this is an exception. We don't use could come in. Alright, although he didn't have a ticket, Ned was allowed to come in. It's an exception. Now, in negative sentences, we can use either couldn't or wasn't allowed to or weren't allowed to say that permission was not given in general or particular situations. For example, we might say, I couldn't open the present until my birthday. I couldn't open the present until my birthday. Or I might also say, I wasn't allowed to open the present until my birthday. Sorry, that example is not written in the lesson. But when it comes to negative sentences, we can use both ways to express permission or lack of permission in the past. Okay, that's the end of our lesson about could be allowed to come, those excellent and useful modal verbs. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. Please share the content. If you enjoyed the lesson about the grammar, which I really think is crucial in terms of construction, so that we can express ourselves in English, and so that we can be able to understand English texts, English, to read journals, magazines, and even speak to English speakers all over the world. I really believe that those verbs are quite useful. Please enjoy the content, give it a thumbs like, and share the content with English learners and English speakers all over the world, so that we can keep up with the good work and continue teaching English learners, English speakers all over the world. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to enjoy it. Bye. Cheers.